Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Today it's Thursday, 7:15 in Ireland, and I would like to open the bridge with United States. It's already been opened. We have our dear guest here, Dr. Vanessa Anseloni. She's a special friend and a wonderful person who is looking after our group since the beginning. Since the beginning, I would say about 2010.
Yes.
Yeah, 2010. Yeah, because in 2010. So it's a great pleasure to have her here. I know she has a very busy schedule, a very busy agenda, especially in these times. Everybody asking for talk, for this, for that. But anyway, we couldn't find a time, and I'm so glad she's here, and today she's gonna talk the mental health in the pandemic time. It's a great topic. It was requested by our people here in Ireland because what we have seen so far, a lot of people need to learn how to deal with all these changes in society, changes in behavior, changing relationship, changing in how you interact with your neighbor. So it's a lot of changes, and some people sometimes are not used to it or are not comfortable to it. Okay, so let's do our initial prayer. So I would like to invite everyone to raise up your thoughts if you want, if you can, if you're allowed to. Please open up your heart, make connections with Master Jesus, with our mentors of the SSI, mentors of Cardiac Radio, asking them to give us what we need according to our merits, according to our needs. Please give out support to Dr. Vanessa Anseloni today in order to allow her to say her message and reach out those who need to listen. Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity. So be it. Amen. Okay, dear Vanessa.
All right. Thank you, Steven. It's good to be back. It's good to have you guys here at Cardiac Radio as well.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, and we're thankful to the current times, to the blessings of this togetherness. We
Yeah.
feel closer together. It's so important, right? And then we talk today, we're going to talk about mental health. I have a few slides to share.
Okay.
Just to add, the visual is always so powerful, but we're not going to focus only on it. I'm just going to share here
Okay.
briefly.
So I go behind the scenes. I leave you with your slides beside you. Okay. Any problem? I'm here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Stephen. So, friends, here we're going to talk about mental health. It's such an interesting day because it's in the news everywhere that Michelle Obama declared that she's dealing with low grade depression during this pandemic. And people are like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But what is it? Right? What's happening? And the question is, does it matter the label? What is important is that she's stepping forward, telling the public something we need to deal with. Because often we feel things and we don't go after help. We need it. We need to learn to speak up about what we're feeling, what we are experiencing, and it's very normal. We're talking about the pandemic, and you and I know it's not easy to be isolated. I know we're not 100% isolated because we have the internet, we have phone, we have we can even go out of our house and walk around the block or do essential things for those who are not in the forefront and they need to do much more than that. But there are lots of restrictions, and that's a problem. Of course, it is because it's unnatural. We're restricted. We're not allowing the natural flow of our relationships to happen as we used to. The hugs, right? The natural interaction, the conversations, and it's a lot about stress. Okay, so here we have it. We're talking about a lot of stress, and when stress happens continuously, we enter what we call chronic stress. Chronic stress is a super problem. Because stress is not a problem at all. Stress is just a response to change. We need to have a system to naturally deal with changes that happen every day. But when they happen in such a way that they don't go away chronically, that's when our system starts adapting to those chronic insults to change or stimulate to change. It depends on the person. And that may escalate into several issues, psychosomatic disorders, including mental health issues. And depression is one of them. Mhm. If you go to the laboratory, for example, as a scientist, you talk about animal models to study depression and anxiety and stress. And if you want one of the models to create depression, one of the features of depression, which is hopelessness, that feeling of hopelessness is a feature of depression. In the laboratory, you can create that. And I'll give you an example. It seems simple, it's a lot more complicated than that, but just to give you a summary, you take like a little rodent, and then you put that little rodent to swim in a particular um, in a particular container. Everything very scientifically validated. And then, of course, if they swim for X amount of time without any platform to stop and recompose themselves, without seeing any ways, and if you do it for several days, even if you take them out of it, put them back in their cage, if you do this every day, you will create a change in the physiology of that little rodent. We will see changes in the neurotransmission of that little rodent. We will see changes also in the way the brain responds to many other different stimuli, showing to us that the body adapts. So you and I, before we begin talking about mental health, we need to talk about adaptation. We are learning beings. As learning beings, we work around adapting ourselves to survive. But we are also able to adapt into difficult scenarios. And sometimes those adaptations create conditionings that in the long run of life may create, let's say, side effects. We're going to talk about it, but we just want to keep in mind this word, adaptation. You and I are born to survive. We have a whole system in place, physically speaking and mentally speaking, to survive. But it's more than that, to adapt to life. To survive, we need to adapt. So when we talk about mental health, we're talking about what exactly? is mental health. It's the health of the mind. Yes, it is. The health of the mind. So, for all of us, it's very important to do a checkup on how we're doing. If Michelle Obama is disclosing today that she is dealing with some form of low grade depression, we also need to do a checkup and see, how am I doing? Are you doing well? Well, most likely on earth, we struggle to do well. And I will say, only Spiritism explains the whole 9 yards of it. Psychiatry, psychology can't explain it all, in spite of how much they try, because it's limited. It's the paradigm that we still use to understand the human mind in psychology and psychiatry needs to be improved, needs to be expanded. And Spiritism has an all encompassing understanding of the human mind. We understand that the mind is not in the brain. That's a big deal. Because if you take any pill, it's going to be a band-aid, but it's not going to help in the long run of life. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. Okay. If the doctor thinks you need to take some anxiety pills, you may take them. But that doesn't solve the problem, because we're going to see here today, the problem is deeper than that. It's not in the physical body. Let's take a look at a book that we'll recommend to you. Of course, this book is first in Spanish, and this book will share with you. It's a fantastic book. Amália Domingo Soler, the Spanish medium. What a spiritist medium that we need to study, to know more about, to read her books. One of her books is already in English, Memoirs of Father Germain, and you can find it at Amazon.com. But the other ones are yet to be in English. But at least 15 cases of this book that I'm mentioning to you, Hechos que prueban in Spanish, 15 of those cases are discussed at Cardiac Radio. And you can go to either our YouTube channel at Cardiac Radio and read 15. The playlist is 15 cases of previous lives. Go to our SoundCloud account, 15 cases of previous lives, or you can go to our Facebook page, and in the playlist 15 cases of previous lives, you're going to find 15 cases of this book. Why this book? Because in this book, you're going to see the roots of our mental stability, our mental health, in cases such as the one that I'm going to mention to you in children, okay? When we talk about mental health, the hardest cases are the ones that happen in children. And there is a case there about two sisters. They are young. They are not even preteens, 8 and 10. And they live in a poor family, and one of them cannot walk by herself. And they live in such conditions that they cannot in any way be together. And telling you the case, this younger one depends on the older one to play, to do anything. And the family is of low socioeconomic status. One day, the woman in the family who is taking care of them, the mom, needs to go do something in the neighborhood. The father is working and entrusts the care of the younger one to the older one and says, I'll be back, take care of your sister. And what happens is very odd. Amália Domingo Soler couldn't understand until the explanation of the good spirits. This older kid, she wanted to go somewhere else in the field and play. So she said to the sister, "Let me carry you on my back and we'll go there." When she's walking through the pathway, she hears a voice, and a voice that incites her to kill her sister. She listens to the voice and somewhat surrenders to the call, and she succeeds. When the parents came back, she was repentant, but she said, "I heard a voice. What happened?" I'm cutting short on this dramatic case, but it's real. It happens on earth sometimes. Why did it happen? We want to know. Amalia Domingo Soler consults the spirits and asks, "What happened here? How come?" And then, of course, the spirits are very thorough. They say, "Well, it didn't happen overnight. The parents didn't pay attention to the signs." So this is a note for us. Mark it down. Chapter 14, item 9 of the Gospel According to Spiritism. St. Augustine is going to say, keep an eye on your children. You see from the very early stages the tendencies of previous lives. And do as the good gardener does. Go there and trim the shoots before they become big and difficult to get rid of. The parents didn't pay attention because sometimes we're so busy, we are not attentive, and they didn't pay attention. But it was already coming that there was this love and hate relationship between the two, which we think is so normal, right? People say, yeah, siblings fight, siblings fight. But it tells us about our level of evolution. You can't imagine Jesus fighting as a child, right? But if we do, it's because we need to be educated to be less argumentative, less combative, less aggressive. So siblings fight is natural in our world, but we need to trim it down to a more Christian-like proposal. It's very important. In this case, Amalia Domingo Soler receives the clarification from the spirits that they had this love-hatred relationship, plus there were entities from previous lives that didn't wanted to avenge both. And in order to avenge for previous lives' reasons, by making one kill the other because of previous lives' reasons, they would succeed. And in a way, they did, because now the girl who killed is going to be punished. I know many people are like, oh my gosh, don't tell these things, Vanessa. We want a better story. No, but this is a real story. A story that really happened. A story that really comes to these mental illnesses that happen in the world. And it doesn't happen only in adults, it happens in children as well. It's very dramatic, very difficult. Prevention is always the best. Is always number one. So we need to understand what's on the behind the scenes of it. We mentioned here reincarnation. We mentioned obsession. But is that enough? Hold on a second. We'll tell you more cases. Let's come here back again with some of the slides and share more information here with you, okay? Let me see if I can have the slides on. 1 second. Okay. Thank you so much. Now, we'll tell you more. I just give you bits of the case. Well, let us go a little deeper. This is a little outdated, of course, but imagine the World Health Organization says that more than 500,000 people are experiencing severe mental health issues. And this is about the severity of it all. It doesn't mean everybody's screened. It doesn't mean that everybody is being taken care of. This is the little that we know. And of the many types, we have schizophrenia, depression, alcohol dependency is considered mental illness. Yes. If you are a person who need to drink every day, even if it's a little bit, you are dependent on that. And that certainly qualifies as well for some form of watch on mental health. Dementia, epilepsy, anxiety, post traumatic stress disorder, addictions of all sorts. Addictions are considered to be mental illness as well. In the United States, we have a whole institute to take care of it all. 13% of the global disease burden is on mental health, related to mental illnesses in general. The prediction is that in 10 years, by 2030, depression will be the second highest cause of disease burden. Now, with the pandemic, we see that this is coming closer because many people are super stressed, which is natural. We are anxious. Some people are experiencing panic attacks, and then depression comes next. What do we do? How can we understand it? Now, we love recipes, huh? We do. Who doesn't? I love it too. I love to cook. Do you like to cook? We love to cook, right? But the thing is this, sometimes I look at a recipe and I doubt that this recipe is really gonna work. Probably because I'm not a real chef. Because a real chef would look and say, oh, this is gonna work. Actually, I will add even something else or get rid of this or change this. But since I don't understand much, I may not believe the recipe. But we tell you, Spiritism has a very clear cut explanation about mental illnesses in general. We don't want to be simplistic, but if we want to go to the root cause of it all, where is it? Is it in the brain of the physical body? No. Some people nowadays are talking about the gut, bacteria in the gut, and how it affects our neurotransmission and how it affects our mood disorders. Yes, they are correlated, but where is the root cause of it all? Where does it lie? Certainly not in the physical body, because no two depressions are alike. You may find two people who are diagnosed with depression and they have different features. So, and even the medication may not work the same for them because the root cause is not in the body. Where is it? Now we're going to ask Spiritism, the Spiritist science, to lead the way. There is no other way because right now we're very limited. We can talk about neurotransmitters, we can talk about environmental things, upbringing issues, emotional issues. Yes, they are factors that really belong to the equation of mental health. We think of mental health as an equation, environmental issues, upbringing, neurotransmission, etc. Yeah, it affects. But the key factor, what's the key factor? Where is the key factor? Now, we're going to talk about the real deal, okay? So let us pay attention to this. This is so beautiful because we're going to see that the cause of it all begins always in previous lives. These morbid predispositions that we may have, being susceptible to diseases, they begin their root as a rule. And you can find this in chapter 19, part 2 of the book Evolution into Worlds by André Luiz, Chico Xavier, and Balveira. It says that the root of it all is in the spiritual body. Well, no wonder it's so hard to treat it, right? Because giving a pill not necessarily goes there and changes it all. It's in the spiritual body, the matrix of it all, the mode of our physical body, the mode of our physical brain in the spiritual body, and the formation of that illness begins. That's the root in the perispirit. When? When we make a grave mistake in previous lives or in this life or in this life. But who says you made a grave mistake, right? Who tells us I made a grave mistake, I didn't make a grave mistake? Let's talk about this. We need to pause. There's no rush. Let's talk about this. When I say I made a grave mistake, who says it? My inner conscience. It's inside of all of us. You don't need to be a spiritist. Deep inside, we know the right and wrong of life. But we take shortcuts. We love shortcuts, right? And they don't work. It's when somebody says, I'm pregnant, and the partner says, I don't want the baby, we're not ready. If you want to stay together, you better get rid of the baby. And the person feels like there's no other way. And you go through an abortion. Let's say you didn't know about the spiritist concept of it all. And you did what you do. And what happens next? In the long run, we'll have to deal with that awareness that we made a grave mistake. This is not judgment, it's just a fact. It was the wrong turn. Now, how do we deal with these wrong turns? What happens? Because God is so loving, He allows us to make this choice. And now we're doomed to the consequences of those choices. Well, the good news is if you go to the book Heaven and Hell by Kardec, in its first parts, it talks about there is no eternal punishment. There is not even punishment. There is an educational measure, and we're going to be re-educating ourselves. But how do we go from making a choice that is a big mistake into being sick? Okay, so here is where André Luiz, the spirit doctor that wrote the book No Solar, and many others, including the one we're mentioning here, Evolution into Worlds. Here we have, and I apologize for Stephen because you have to put me back with the slides here. Thank you, Stephen. But here we have the grave mistake and the memories of it. They will be forming in our spiritual body a zone of morbid predisposition. They say it's like a knot of vibratory disturbance that is going to be vibrating and thus predisposing us to imbalances, whether they are imbalances that generate mental illnesses, cancer, any kind of illnesses. They may. So, Vanessa, does it mean we're doomed to be sick until we harmonize ourselves with the laws of God. We will. So illnesses are expungement of vibratory disturbances, sometimes of many lives ago, not necessarily this life. And only when we're capable of expunging those knots of vibration through the physical body. That's why we need to reincarnate as well, to reharmonize ourselves. It's like the physical body is helping us beautify the spiritual body, the perispirit, that has lesions, fractures, cracks, and I say this quote unquote, because of our choices. Mental illnesses are within this realm. So, am I born susceptible to depression? You may, not necessarily because of a parents. No, when we talk about genetics, the parents don't pass on anything that we don't attract ourselves. This is very important. I see parents who are so guilty, they feel so guilty that their children are sick, that they inherited something from the parents physically, genetically. But our children are not going to inherit anything that doesn't belong to them because we are magnets. Our minds attract the gene pool that we need. You can read more about it in the book Missionaries of the Light by André Luiz through Chico Xavier. The whole case of Sigismundo, how they planned his reincarnation. And then it's clear cut to us that nobody's going to attract a gene pool that we do not need. We only have the body that we need, not that we deserve. We have the family that we need, the body that we need. We're born in the place that we need. Not necessarily that we deserve, because we all deserve the best because we're children of God. We do. But because God is educating us, we need this family, this body, these specific predispositions that we created. So the little girl who heard the voice and one day surrendered to killing her sister, she wasn't mentally ill overnight. She had this imbalance. But in our society, we overlook so many things. And we parents need to do a better job at parenting. Of course we do. We need to be more attentive, more diligent, prepare ourselves better for the function of the role, which is the mission of all missions, to be a parent. And in spite of it all, we don't. We overlook things. And there are underlying things that are happening, and we're not paying attention. And suddenly, things come up, they sprout. Plus, the susceptibility also to obsession. When you read another book, if you don't find it online to buy, the book named Obsession by Divaldo Franco, the spirit Manuel Filomeno de Miranda tells the whole story of a 15-year-old girl who suddenly has a schizophrenic crisis and is taken to a psychiatric ward. You can listen to the whole book at Cardiac Radio SoundCloud playlist Obsession. It was beautifully recorded by a host at Cardiac Radio, and you can listen to the whole book if you don't find a book to read. But if you do find a book to read, you can also listen to it, which is a delight. And in that book, we're going to see the case of a girl, high society, in her birthday party. She flips. She's playing the piano, and the father comes up, and she slaps the father in the face. She has a crisis. She's taken to the hospital, and a whole lot of things start happening in that family. Why? Now, grave mistake in the past. Guilt. Oh no. Here's the word. It's in the recipe. Guilt. We believe in the ingredient. Yes. Guilt generates lots of problems. So, do you know how to deal with guilt? Do you know how to deal with guilt? What to do with guilt? Do you teach your children about how dealing with guilt? How do you usually deal with guilt? Since ancient times, we escape. We usually escape through drugs, altered states of the mind, addictions of all sorts. And if we don't, we are going to find opportunities to work on them. Who teaches them to deal with guilt or teaches us? Nobody does, but Spiritism does. How to deal with guilt, how to deal with anger, how to deal with things that will generate imbalances of the mind that will potentially be manifesting in our neurochemistry and generating the spectrum of mental illnesses that we're talking about. Inside of us, there is this conscience. And you can find it more in Question and Answer 621 of the Spirit's Book by Kardec. All of these laws are in our conscience. In the causes of mental imbalances, we're going to find that when we are imbalanced, we're going to connect with other ones in spiritual obsessions. Like the little girl who killed her sister. She was not alone. She had their inner predisposition. In previous life, she murdered. In this life, the spirit who was murdered is avenging them and using her own ways to inflict more pain on everybody. So, spiritual obsessions, they are part of the root cause, but it depends on us. If there is no plug, the obsessors cannot plug onto us. They cannot push us to do things that we're not predisposed to do. When people say, oh, the spirits made me say this, the spirits made me do this, the spirits made, actually, no. The association mind to mind was powerful enough to make it manifest. It's what we call emotional contagion. I am predisposed. Somebody comes, we get along, boom, we go manifest that behavior. And in this case, criminal behaviors. And if not criminal to the eyes of the human law, crimes that we know belong to our going against God's laws. Obsessions, they may cause these mental health imbalances, but deep inside, it is the very person that needs to do some transformation within. If you ask about an approach to heal mental illnesses, we would say we need a multidimensional approach. It's impossible to heal with pills alone, or with spiritual treatment alone, or with psychological treatment alone, psychiatric. We need a combination of it all, starting with the mind. The mind. Before we talk about details in this multidimensional approach, let us talk about the mind, where everything begins. Okay? I see here Elaine Coutinho talked about adopted children And it's so good you're mentioning this because we tell parents, you're as much a parent as any parent. And even the parents, biological parents, they often look at their children with that eye of disbelief that either their child is really theirs, or with that guilt that they passed on something or something is missing. So we would say it's more about the human mind than anything else. But that spirit, no matter if they came through our biological means or not, we belong together spiritually. There are precise, precise dynamics bringing us together. We're more family than we imagine. Now, when we talk about mental health, it's all about the mind. Question to us, we want to be practical. Do you pay attention to what is happening in your mental field? What do you mean, Vanessa? What do you often think every day? What do you often feel every day? I don't know, so many things, but there's a pattern. Take some time to write down, to observe. What are your constant, most common thoughts and feelings? Because if we don't make that inner assessment, we're going to be like a boat in the middle of the ocean of life, and things are going to happen without our will. And I say, quote unquote, without our will, meaning our will is laxed. A good exercise is take a piece of paper and some color pencils and write my mental field. Draw whatever comes to you. Doesn't matter if you know how to draw professionally or not. Draw. Use colors. If you don't have color pencils, you can use just pen or pencil, crayons, paint, whatever you like. Draw your mental field. And by drawing the mental field, don't analyze anything. Just put it aside. Look at it next day. See what happens, what you're seeing. If you want to do this more days, you can. But observe what's in there. What do you see in that mental field? Are you seeing? Is what you're seeing positive, negative, constructive, or destructive? Now, this is key for us to identify whether our mental field is filled with constructive ideas or destructive ones. Majority of people on earth, they cherish a lot of destructive ideas. I'm not good enough. People are more capable than me. And it's always about self-doubt. And even the doubt, we project that doubt in others too. And then we become sarcastic. We have this very acidic sense of humor. And then our relationships perish. No wonder we're going to start seeing our mental health crumbling up. When the other day, in another study, we mentioned that at the core of depression, there is a lot of anger. Some people doubted it. Today, listening to the reports by Michelle Obama talking about how she developed this low-grade depression, she says, I've been so angry at seeing the protests and the irony of our administration not doing much, etc. See, anger. And our hopelessness in not being able to conquer it all. We don't want to be simplistic, But it's clear to all of us that the root cause of our mental health, it's our mental life. And if we want to step forward into adjusting it, the number one thing is awareness. We need to be aware of what we think and what we feel. There's no other way. We're never going to heal unaware of it all. Mental health requires awareness. We need to push our awareness. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And usually we need friendly professional help. And then analyze. Okay, you're angry. You're angry and you can't change. But who are we? Where is God in this? Where is God in all this? Why am I going to power struggle with the world and I'm going to lose? Because I won't be able to change the world. Depression comes. It's a lot of that feeling that I am God-like, but I'm not. There's only one God. And God doesn't impose. So the second item in our list is to see where God is in our mental field. So here's like, it's almost like that there's an exercise. Where's Wally? Where's Wally? Where is God? Where is God in your mental field? In all the worries, in all the things we feel, good and bad, constructive, destructive, where is God in there? Is God somewhere? For the family of the two sisters, God was not present in their minds. They didn't learn much about it, the reverence to God. That's why we're saying it's very important that we embrace this concept, the feeling, the knowledge that God exists. And God is all powerful. If God is allowing, it's because there must be a way out. We're learning something by being angry at people. We're trying to be better than God. We're not going to succeed. We're going to fail. So first of all, awareness. Second, find God in your life. And third, we don't want to be simplistic, but it's quite straightforward. And it's in chapter 10 of the book, Thought in Life by Emmanuel. It says, if you want to get rid of the handcuffs of the past, seek the good. Feel the good. Visualize the good. Mold the good with all the resources you have at the hand. There is no other way. That's why Jesus came and taught us the good news. Because he said, seek the good. Jesus didn't come to say, oh, the world is really bad. Oh my gosh. You have no idea what you're going to go through for centuries, millennia. He said, let us love. Let us believe in love. Let us be loving. Let us seek the good. Like when he saw a dog that was dead in the pathway. Jesus and the disciples were walking by, and the disciples were like, ugh, ew. Yeah, because it was already smelling the putrefaction of the body of the dog. And Jesus masterfully turns and says, wow, this dog must have had beautiful teeth. And we're like, what? What are you talking about? It's a dead dog. And Jesus saying, yes, but look at the beautiful things. But do we? We usually don't. What are the beautiful things in our lives? In us. And here is a tip for all of us to resolve that critical inner voice that escalates into anxiety, into depression, into obsessions of all sorts when we don't believe in ourselves. When we feel guilty, first, God allowed us to make a choice. That means that God allowed us to make a choice. That means that God allowed us, which means there is a way out. There is always a new beginning. And look at Paul of Tarsus, the inspiration for us. Huge mistakes. And yet, when he found out the mistake, he turned it around and worked laboriously to the new beginning. Who doesn't make mistakes? It is on us to begin anew, to punish ourselves, to be depressed, to be angry at ourselves. It's as if we're looking at God and saying, sorry, God, but you're so stupid you didn't know what you created. How arrogant of us to say that when we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't believe in ourselves. It's as if we're looking at God and saying, nonsense when you created me. And we're going to pay a high price for trying to battle against God. And depression is one of them. I don't want things my way, like Frank Sinatra. No, not my way. We want God's way. Because our way, we've been there, done that, and look at us. Pandemic is here telling us, turn it around. So now we have a choice. Be aware. What is in my mental field? Coach ourselves to the good. Hold on to God and say, I will choose constructive things. For people who are already struggling with mental health issues, patience is in the recipe too. But we would say it's not enough to take a pill. It's not enough to go to a psychiatric hospital and stay there. Because if we don't coach our minds to constructive thinking and discipline our emotions, disciplining our emotions. I remember a year ago, we were visiting a patient who was temporarily in the psychiatric hospital. While waiting, we listened to the case of a family nearby who was visiting one patient. And this patient was angry. And the family was trying to calm her down. And she was saying, no, I'm not going to forgive him. I'm not going to forgive him. Okay, now we understand why we are there in the psychiatric hospital. Cleansing the hearts. Impossible to be mentally healthy if I hold on to grudges. If I justify my resentment. If I keep feeding my guilt. So we need to help our family members and ourselves whenever we are in that state of the mind to conquer new renewal of emotions. Pick your emotion. You can choose your emotion. People don't teach us, but it's possible. You choose I'm feeling sad. Okay. Do I want to continue feeling sad? No. What do I do? Well, say a prayer. Count on your guardian angel. Do something for others, because when you help others, without charity, there's no salvation. When we help others, we're going to encounter a new oasis for our mental health. Bathing in new waters of kindness, of friendship, of gratitude, of joy. So, thinking less of ourselves is also a way to be constructive. Too much of ourselves creates mental illnesses too. So, the recipe has three main elements. One, we will repeat. It's clear we need awareness. What have I been thinking? Two, I need to find God in my life. And what God is this? The supreme intelligence, supreme love of the universe? Or is just a projection of our humanity? And three, we need urgently to seek the good in everything. Make an effort to feel the good, to visualize, be positive, and thus, by counting on the help of professionals, medication, and even spiritual treatment, will certainly succeed in conquering a better state of the mind, new quality to our mental health. We're going to stop here and talk back with Stephen and new friends if you have more questions and comments.
I'll spend here all day listening you.
So much to
And learning. And
Spiritism is
learning.
fascinating.
It's a marvelous. It's so tricky how everything connects. It's but what do you say for those who in this moment perhaps they lost the family, a member of family for the COVID, and they are blaming God. And they are angry at God.
Mhm. You know, the loss of a loved one, Stephen, is considered in psychology a high stressor.
Mhm.
And for us in Spiritism, we understand the feelings of separation, sudden separation. It's natural. We shouldn't fight against it. You need to cry, we would say, cry. Cry. Yes, wash. Sometimes I tell people, you didn't invent the tears. If you don't allow the divine tears in you to roll out, you're not going to cleanse your heart. So cry. It's okay. Cry, cry. Turn on the shower. Cry underneath the shower. Allow those waters to shower away. But in prayer, we would say, Stephen, pray that God help us heal that pain, but not struggling or fighting with God. We say, God, I'm so shocked. We need to talk with God like that, like a child to a parent. And you say, God, I I really, really am shocked. I don't get it. I didn't see it coming. But you know the way. Please help me. Help me heal this pain. Help my family, our family here, understand all of this. We trust in you. Aha. So that's the thing. If we're struggling with God, then the one you're struggling with is not God. Because the God that we know, it's impossible to struggle with. because God is all love. Then it's just a concept that we need to revisit. So we would say maybe that's one of the reasons why we need to go through this,
Mm.
right? The learning experience, right, Stephen?
Yeah, and Kardec Radio is reached in New Zealand.
Oh, that's nice.
Huh? We are
Renato.
rich in New Zealand, so it's so wonderful. Yeah, everybody agree with me. I could listen you all evening, Vanessa. So
I wish I could be here with you guys all night long. So
yeah, yeah. Just follow Kardec Radio program. You will see her talking.
and here
Download
we
the app.
are.
Download the app. Follow us. So you're gonna have more about Vanessa as well. One last question we have here is how to accept that we need to move on.
That's why we need many reincarnations, right, Steve?
And you have like just 2 minutes to answer.
Yeah. Well, we have many lives, but we say with God, we need to go within and rediscover God. I think in this pandemic, if I may say something, just to finalize, one of the greatest discoveries about God. People need God more than ever. But what is God? So, a big, big, big opportunity for us in Spiritism to share that answer of question 1 in the Spirit's book.
Mhm.
God, so powerful, but where is God right now? We needed to revisit it and feel it. It's not only to know here, but to feel. And to feel, we would say, breathe. Because at each breath, God is saying, come on, you're here with me. That's it.
My dear, what I have to say, kiss in your heart. Thank
Thank
you very much. It was wonderful having you here with us, sharing this moment, especially giving us the opportunity to broadcast along with Kardec Radio.
Thank you.
And I learned with you about try and keep everything in English. So I'm doing it. It's tough, it's difficult. Many people do not understand, but we are here doing. But one, just one last question here from Tanya.
Okay.
And then if you don't have time here, you can answer later. I can send to her. A few
Sure.
days ago, I met my cousin who was really delayed by road works, and as she described it, it said it is great. They are doing a really good improvement on the road. I was struck by this, as most people would perhaps be annoyed or frustrated at being delayed. I think it would be great if there were more and more films, TV, books, etc., that could expose people to such ways of thinking.
And
Yeah,
she's asking, right? Is there anything that you would recommend in particular? I think she's talking about positive thinking. Mamma mia. Tanya, that's a beautiful question. And we would say, there, thank God, besides the Spiritist literature, which is all about the positive, always, always, always. Read the book, Good News, which, by the way, is being published by the Brazilian Spirits Federation very soon. It's probably a month or two away from being released. That book is all about the positive. But,
good news.
yeah, the Good News by Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier.
Mm.
It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. But we will say this. Besides the Spiritist literature, you're going to find Louise Hay's books. We recommend Louise Hay's books and the YouTube videos, affirmations, Wendyers. There is one. Change Your Thought, Change Your Life by Wayne Dyer. Read it or watch the DVD. It's all about this positive thinking, how important it is, and how it relies in ancient Eastern philosophy, like the Tao from Lao Tzu. And it's here on earth for us. It's just a matter of us seeing it. So, a good exercise for us is to always breathe and feel that your breath is God's sponsorship on you. Okay?
Yeah, great.
So, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And as tradition here, can you do the final prayer for us?
Oh, sure. Thank you. I will. Let us pray, friends, because in prayer we
Let's
renew
pray.
ourselves. Right?
Let's breathe.
Let's pray. Breathing in and out, let us feel our connection with God. Dear God, we thank you for being with us and for making us your co creators. What a joy. It's so real to think that we are so unique, that you make us your co creators. We have so much to learn, but the little that we know, we are ready in awe because you love us and you made us for love, to love. Right now, at this moment, we want to feel your loving care through the air as the molecules of your love permeate our minds and bodies, renewing our health, renewing ourselves completely, bathing our spiritual material brains in harmony. We feel that your love is cleansing our hearts, and we decide to let go of resentment, of guilt, of anger, sadness. Because with your love, we feel renewed hope. We feel your protection and the certainty that life is wonderful. When we cry, we are just washing away what we can't handle. But we believe in you. We know of you. And we know that with you, everything is possible. Please keep blessing the Spirit Society of Ireland and their beautiful efforts in sharing the good news to the world in the language that reaches so many hearts. We want to visualize right now the whole world being enveloped in these loving vibrations that are now being showered upon us. And at each smile, a new opportunity of creating with you, co-creating with you, the kingdom of your love on earth. And so be it.
Amen. Thank you, my dear. Thank you
Thank
very much. Thank you all people who are here with us today. I'll see you next Tuesday. So stay tuned. And once more, Vanessa, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening all. Bye bye.